what I call tis the seasonings.
Oh,
And I did about the same thing, but we talked about making homemade packaged seasoning mixes and then how to package them and make them pretty to give as gifts. So I'm looking forward to this.
good.
This will be a little different from that. We will touch on like some spice rubs and things like that, but yours does sound like it's a partner with this one. So maybe
Yeah,
you'll be able to take this one and use it as well.
yeah.
Um,
I did it at state conference. They were going, oh, next year we'll have tis the seasonings too. And I went, well, I better get some new information. So
yeah, that's always the hard part is trying to come up with a follow-up to it. So um, I'm just trying to get some information uploaded for Scott that would be available for you guys after the program.
good.
So,
Hello,
um,
Linda.
Hi,
How are you?
doing pretty good. A little
Good.
cold, but good.
Yeah. Well, we actually warmed up to about 39 yesterday. So,
ooh,
There you go.
yeah, we've been having a stinking fog. It just moved in and didn't go away for days.
Right.
Where in Oregon are you?
I'm in Klamath Falls.
Oh, Climate Falls.
Yeah.
The sun was nice though.
Yeah, when the sun came out, it was really nice. So I have a WINTE on the screen.
So, how to get the most of Grammarly fruit. It's Kayla. On behalf of Grammarly, to tell you all about the free version in the world. Millions have chosen.
Bonnie, can you hear me?
Grammarly. My cousin Izzy.
I can now. I can hear something in the background, but I can hear you.
We don't see anything.
Up here, I'm muted. Am I still muted, Bonnie?
No, you are not now.
Okay. This is Dolores Walden out of Kansas.
Okay.
Oh,
Got two Kansas on there. Hi, Faye.
Hi there.
You trying to make us all jealous, Faye, with your background, or you trying to make yourself feel good? I don't know if you're on vacation.
Trying to feel warm in
Yeah.
Kansas, frigid weather. It's not supposed to be too bad, but
When the lesson starts and that screen is black with some white on it, will that go away so I can see it?
I don't have a black screen with white on it. I have the image I see is myself and my background.
I see that now, but when you started to talk earlier, it went that way.
Okay.
I might have to go get the ladies to do something.
She might need to okay the recording too.
Yeah.
Maybe the black screen you're seeing is that WINTE, which is a camera with a slash over it.
Yeah, that's Dolores. Yeah, that might be what you're seeing.
Okay.
But you'll be,
I'm seeing everybody else.
so I think probably Annette will be sharing her screen for part of it or all of it. So you'll be able to see what she's sharing.
Actually, probably not because I don't really have anything to share.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is kind of an interesting way for me to do this. Normally, I do this as an in-person, hands-on, touchy-feely, smelly kind of class, which is always interesting. So to do it purely online, I've just got myself tangled up in my cables. Will be a little different, and the downside is you don't get the full sensory experience for it. So if you're ready, Bonnie, I'll go ahead and get started.
I think so. I just want to welcome the rest of that have come in. Connie Greiner and Carolyn R. We're grateful that you're here, and everybody else. I do thank Annette for doing this. Annette gave one earlier in our history of gifts from the hive, and it was all on things that you could do with not just honey. It was beeswax and stuff too, wasn't it? But that was
Right.
that.
It was products from the hive that told you all of the different products that were available, and then some of the creative ways to use them, and some of the commercial products that use them as well. So
Yeah.
this class is going to be hopefully it'll be worth your time. So
I'm sure it will. And I am going to go put you in, I hope, spotlight you if I can figure out how to do that. Go find you again. All right, there you go. You're on,
okay.
Annette.
So thank you once again for the opportunity to be able to give this and present this to you guys. I always enjoy coming and teaching classes like this. I need to do more for FCE as a whole. So Bonnie put me on the hook for that, have Scott poke me once in a while for
Okay.
new classes. So, but this one was, I originally wanted to do it a couple months ago so that if you were interested in it, you could go ahead and take the time and have the products be brewing per se on that, but it's called Gifts from the Kitchen. And so it's kind of like if you're ready to move beyond the 15 bean soup mix or the cookies in a jar, typical handmade kitchen crafts. If you'd rather make your own upscale gifts from the kitchen, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So we'll be talking about making your own flavored sugars, smoked salts, flavor extracts, infused oils and vinegars and that type of thing. So like I said, I normally teach this as a hands-on demonstration class, so I'll have to modify it a little bit. And so it'll just, y'all hang on for the ride for that. So um, what I'd like to talk about first is some herbal salts and blends. And so if you just think about the herbs that you like to blend together in your regular culinary cooking, you can make your own custom herb blends according to those tastes. And so there's no definitive rules on what you can and can't use. And some of the most popular ones to use are like dill, mint, oregano, thyme, sage, basil's a big one, rosemary. Citrus zest is another one. So you want to use a coarse sea salt, a kosher salt, or a canning pickling salt for this recipe. And the reason why it is because the grains are bigger. It's not just your regular table salt grain. And so it'll just be a more finished looking product on that. Also be aware that some of your kosher salts and your canning and pickling salts don't have iodine in them, and they also don't have anti-caking ingredients. So it may harden up on you, but it's very easy to bust it back apart in a spice grinder or with a mortar and pestle. So when you want to make these herbal salts, you can just use it in a 1-to-1 blend to replace the salt in your regular recipes. You can rub it on roasts or chickens, sprinkle it in the stews, add it to your vegetables. You always see on those fancy culinary shows on TV, they take a little bit and sprinkle it on the top, and that's what this can do. You can put on your popcorn. You can add it to your favorite dressing or dip mix. And so if you want to use a fresh herb salt or make a fresh herb salt, the first thing you need to do is get fresh herbs. You need about 3 cups of loosely packed fresh herbs of your choice, whatever it wants to be. And typically when I teach the class, I use basil, and a 1/2 cup of coarse salt. So you want to wash the herbs real good, whichever kind you use. Remove any tough or woody stems and any discolored leaves, but you want to pat them very well dry. And then you put them in a food processor and pulse them until they're just basically ground up. It's a coarse grind. It's not a paste. You don't want to turn it into a pesto. Then transfer it to the fridge and keep it in there for about 7 to 14 days. You need to shake it every so often to let the flavors meld together. And if you're using fresh herbs, you do need to store it in the refrigerator because of the water content of the herbs and to prevent spoilage. The salt does act as a preservative, but you still want to keep it in the fridge. And then you can also make these herb blends by using dried spices or dried salts, dried herbs. So the same concept, if you have your own culinary garden, your own kitchen garden, take your spices, your herbs, dry them very well, and then you can blend those into the salt blends as well. And one of the ones I like to use is a 1/4 cup of salt, a teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and then a teaspoon of dried lime zest. Most of the time when you're using citrus and you're juicing it out for recipes, what do you do with the rest of it? Well, if you'll zest it before you juice it, you can then take the zest and dry it in a dehydrator, or if, well, I've got a gas oven with a pilot light on it. So I can just stick it in there overnight and it'll dry it. And then you can just chop it up as coarsely or as finely as you want to and use it in any of these other recipes. And that melds into one of the food waste reduction topics as well. That's another way to use up some of that we've started talking about in FCE, ACWW, and CWC. So some of the things you can make is your own chili lime mix. You can make your own lemon pepper blends. You can make a rosemary garlic salt. You can do a smoky sweet salt where you mix brown sugar, sweet paprika, and cayenne pepper. It all depends on your own flavor palettes with those. So that's just, there's a wide variety of things that you can do. So if you want to take a fresh herb salt and make it, and instead of having to keep it in the refrigerator, you can then take and dehydrate it. You can dry it in the oven like I talked about, or you can just put it in an air dried method. Just leave it on a cookie sheet out in a dry place, cover it with either a piece of parchment paper or cheesecloth so that the insects or critters can't get into it. But there you go. So the salt, when you first make it, it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful green color. But as it dries, the color is going to fade away, just like anything else when it's bright and brilliant when it's fresh, but it fades as it dries. So the same with the flavor. Fresh is always going to have that big, vibrant flavor, but when you make it and then let it dry, the flavor does tend to go away. So bear that in mind when you want to have a big powerhouse flavor. Don't overdo the salt. Put way more herb than salt so that when the flavor does degrade because of the drying process, you can put more in to boost that flavor without making it over salty. And the salt will also clump up as it dries because there's no anti-caking agents or preservatives in there. So just pound it back out. You can bust it out with a fork, mortar and pestle, anything. It very easily breaks back up. So are there any questions on salt? And it really, I apologize for this. I should have probably put together some kind of cool slideshow or something like that, but it's different to transition a live class into just a verbal presentation. So, but at any time, just pop up with questions and I'll be happy to answer them. So
did you say there would be a handout?
I did. I've sent Scott some of the handouts that I use when I teach the classes with, and so he'll do his Scott magic and get those to you.
Okay, great.
So, you can also do flavored or infused sugars. We go to the store and we see these fancy infused salts and sugars, and they're just so expensive. But when you really look at the ingredients, there's not much to it. So if you do, for say, you want to do a thyme flavored sugar, you're making lemon thyme cookies and you want to sprinkle thyme sugar on the top of it. It's basically the same concept as with the salts. You take your fresh herbs, you wash them, you dry them very well, and then you put them in a container with sugar and you let them sit for a while. And I do have some of I pulled stuff out of my pantry today, and I'm not sure how well you can see it, but this is actually lemon zest, or actually the lid says orange. So this is orange zest that I've used for a different project and then had the zest left over. I dehydrated it. I chopped it up pretty fine and I put it in with just some regular white sugar. And it's been sitting in my pantry for a couple, probably at least a year, and I just scoop out of it. I don't use it very often, but when I make like a fruited sugar cookie, I will sprinkle this on the top of it. And for my liquid in my sugar cookie, I use whatever citrus juice that I'm making with this, and so I kind of blend it together like that. But you can see it's nothing fancy, simple like this. You just go through and shake it every once in a while, turn it upside down, just get that in there. And if we were in person, I would pass it around, let everybody smell and sniff. So like I said, that's the downside of that. This is lavender sugar. I had a friend gift me with a nice container of lavender, the lavender buds themselves, and I put them in with sugar. I left the lavender buds whole, but you can grind them up in a spice grinder or a mortar and pestle to make them much finer. When I go to use this, I will take it out and put it in my spice grinder to bust up the lavender leaves more to make it a much finer consistency. But it adds a wonderful texture to the tops of cookies and things like that, and also as an additive in there. And what you can do if you just want the flavor without the lavender, just put it in a strainer, a small colander, a wire strainer, and the sugar is much smaller than the lavender, so you should be able to separate the two out if you actually don't want the lavender in there. Let me see what else is on my table that I brought out. Unidentified. Oh, and you can see I reuse jars all the time. So actually, I know what this is. So this is, you can do your own vanilla sugar, and I'm going to try to not spill it on my keyboard. But these are vanilla beans that have been split open and scraped out, and then I've just put them all in with sugar, and dumped the scrapings in there too, and stirred it all well together and blended it up. And then I use it in a wide variety of things. But it's just a nice gift. If you want to gift it, I would definitely take the beans out before you gift it, or if it's rustic, you can leave them in there. But it just makes a wonderful homemade gift. And we're going to talk specifically about vanilla here in just a little bit. But typically for a vanilla sugar, you can do 1 bean to about 2 cups of sugar. You want to let it sit for about 2 to 4 weeks and then use it as you desire it. When we get to we're going to talk about extracts as well, and then there's an alternative to use those vanilla bean pods with, because they're not inexpensive. They can be very expensive. Best is to buy them in bulk, but I have a whole section on that. So let's see, I'm looking at my notes here. So how do you use an infused or flavored sugar? You can stir it in your coffee. You can stir it in your hot cocoa. A good one is to add it to your vanilla ice cream for just an extra added vanilla kick. Sprinkle it on the tops of cupcakes or muffins. If you have a rustic tart, you can sprinkle it, the bigger grains of sugar, sprinkle it on at the end, and it will just add an extra little hint of vanilla. You can blitz it or grind it real finely in your food processor. Mix a little water or lemon juice in there, make a glaze, and it will have a very pronounced vanilla effect on pronounced vanilla flavor. Just an additional flavor element to some of your cookies and baked goods. So, all right. So that we talked about making a dry sugar blend or a dry salt blend, but you can also make wet sugar and wet salt blends. And so you take the same idea of combining the herbs and the salts or sugars, but you can use enough wet ingredients to just moisten it, not dissolve the sugar or the salt, and then you dry it out, and that infuses the flavors of the liquids into the sugars or the salts. And one of the most popular ones that I do here, I do a couple of them. I do a sriracha lime salt, where I take a cup of kosher salt, about 2 tablespoons to sriracha. Depends on how much you like it. I've also used a Tabasco chili sauce that they sell around here. I don't know if you can get the smoked chipotle chili Tabasco where you're at, but I use that instead of sriracha. And then the zest of a lime. So it's just enough moisture to dampen the salt, but not to dissolve it. So you stir it until it's been completely absorbed. The salt will change color. You pour it onto a baking sheet or parchment paper and allow it to air dry for a couple days. Or you can, like I said, I've got a gas oven with a pilot light. I can stick it in there. It'll be dry overnight. Or you can use a dehydrator. It will clump up as it dries, but you can easily break it back apart. And so that's just a different way of infusing unique flavors into a sugar or a salt. One of the things that I have where I made that orange sugar, I put the zest in there as well. You can take the sugar and use lime juice, lemon juice, orange juice, with 3 or 4 cups of sugar, a tablespoon of each juice, do the same thing. And I use that. I make it in bulk, and then I use it when I make my citrus sugar cookies, and I use that extra flavor without having to use an extract, because sometimes extracts can get a kind of medicinal taste to them. So this is just a way to amp up the flavor without having to use artificial ingredients there. Any questions on like a salt, a wet salt or a wet sugar blend? Any questions at all?
I've never heard of it before, so I will be glad to get your handouts and see if I can try it.
Yeah, so it is kind of interesting, and I'll use the lime salt on like to top Mexican food with, to top a salsa with, to top a guacamole with. So Karen just popped up with a question, says, how do you avoid mold? So salt and sugar are both preservatives, and so when you dry them back to a dry consistency, there's no option for mold because the acidity levels are too high for mold growth. It's much the same as when you're thinking of your canning processes. You can water bath jams and jellies because they're so high in sugar. You can water bath pickle products because they're so high in vinegar, which is an acid. And so that helps with the preservation process. So you don't store your wet sugar blends as they are. You can if you want to store them in the fridge, but if you want to dry them back out, then there's no liquid left to allow the mold growth. Did that answer your question? I don't have the chat popped up. Never left my gas oven on overnight. I've never thought about doing it. I actually don't leave my oven on overnight. I have a commercial oven that has all on pilot lights. So most home stoves today no longer have standing pilot lights, but ours is a commercial stove, so it does. So my oven is a perfect proofer. It's a perfect little dehydrator. If I want to put something overnight in there, it works great. Let me see if I can open up the chat window to make sure I'm not missing anything. There we go. Okay. So Karen's been thinking about buying it, and I don't mind popping up with these questions because I love answering questions during this. Let me see if I can move this over. Okay. So Karen's been thinking about buying a dehydrator. There's a couple of things that you would like to think about when you buy a dehydrator. One, what are you going to use it for? A lot of people buy a new kitchen gadget, they use it for a couple months, and then it sits on the shelf and collects dust and goes into the next yard sale. If you're wanting to think about, now tell me I'm wrong on that. So, there's a lot of uses that you can use for your dehydrator if you're committed to using it. You can make beef jerky out of it. That's one thing. You can do fruit roll-ups. If you've got kids at home, you make a few fruit puree, put them on the trays, dehydrate them, roll them up. You know what's in those products when you do that. You know the preservatives or lack of preservatives, the lack of red food dye, anything like that. And I know that that's starting to be a hot button issue on what's the chemicals actually in our food. So a dehydrator, if you're thinking about getting one, do some research on it. I don't recommend just going the 5 round tray special from your big box store. Number one, they don't have a thermostat on them. You definitely want to think about a dehydrator with a thermostat so that you can dry herbs and spices down at like 90 degrees, and your fruit jerkies or your vegetable jerky, beef jerky needs to be up about 130, 35 degrees. And so the big box store ones have an on-off switch and a full-blown fan. Think of a little higher scale one so that it's got an adjustable thermostat on them. I know a couple brands. I'm not promoting any specific brands. I can tell you that I have American Harvester. I have it. I love it. I've used it for years and years. My dream one is an Excalibur, but it's in the future. If I get one, I get one. If not, then okay, no big deal. There's been some other ones come out on the market. I've not tried them. There's nothing wrong with them. The ones that I like that I've seen lately have the square trays versus round trays, because round it's a shape, but it's a stupid shape for storing stuff. You can just fill in corners better on square stuff and rectangle stuff. So now that I'll come back off of that rabbit trail with that. Did that answer or bring up any more questions? You guys that's a bonus. So okay, so let's see what's on my list next. So I talk about in my class, we grate up some limes, we grate up some lemons, some citrus, because we're going to talk about vanilla extracts and you're making your own extracts. All right, let me swap pages here. So if you've gone to the store, you know the price of vanilla has just absolutely gone through the roof lately. Um, and part of that is because the vanilla crops were a big harvest area for crops had some terrible, terrible wildfires and some floods. And so it destroyed a lot of the vanilla bean trees. And so supply and demand, no supply, demand goes up. Um, okay, so Rebecca, I'll make that comment in just a second. So, um, supply and demand, supply goes down because of natural disaster, demand goes up, price goes up. So you can easily make your own at home. It's not going to have quite the same flavors that you're going to be used to from your commercially bottled stuff, but it will, number one, you can control the amount of alcohol in it. And number two, you can control the additional preservatives. You need to be careful when you get your extracts, read the labels, make sure they're not putting anything extra in there. Um, so I had in the handouts that I sent to Scott that you'll get, there's one for a homemade cherry extract. Now I've never made it. I will be honest with you on that. I just threw a recipe in there for you. But you want most extracts are made in I won't say a vodka base, but homemade ones use a vodka base. Um, Typically, you can use rum and bourbon if you want in your vanillas. You can even, it's your kitchen, it's your rules. Do what you want to. There's no kitchen police coming saying, oh, you can't make a cherry extract with bourbon. You can make it with whatever you want to. Um, but you'll need about a cup and a half of vodka and 2 cups of fresh cherries. So you want to pit your cherries, put them in a mason jar, cover the cherries with vodka, shake the cherries, make sure that they're fully covered, and then store it in a cool, dark place for about 2 weeks. Shake it every few days. If you remember, most of us will stick it in the cabinet and not even remember it's in there till they clean out the cabinet the next time. They're like, oh, what is this? 6 months later. Or in my case, cleaning out pantries like once a year. But after 2 weeks, you want to strain the cherries out and discard them, and then store your extract in a cool, dry location, preferably in a dark brown bottle. So that's the basic process for any of your own extracts. You can do your mint extract the same way. And so mint has so many different varieties. There's the spearmint, there's the basil, there's the pineapple, there's the chocolate mint. So mix and match and try and make your own personalized flavors rather than just the overwhelming peppermint flavor that you can get out of the store. But with mint leaves, you want to wash them and pat them very well dry. You want to crush them as you pack them into a jar, cover them like you did with the cherries, cap them, store them, shake them every few days. You want to leave them for about a month to 2 months. So and you can sample it every so often. I'm not saying, pour you a jigger full of it and drink it down, but you can dip your spoon in there. And when it's as strong as you want, then strain out the leaves and store it. If at the end of a couple months it's not strong enough, strain your leaves out, add new leaves, and keep the process going, and it'll make it stronger. You can do that with citrus extracts. I know a lot of people at the holidays use a lot of lemon extract and orange extract. So you zest your citrus. 2 lemons, 4 limes, or 2 oranges, depending on the flavors, to a cup of vodka. Put in a pint jar, cover it with vodka, make sure all the zest is submerged, fill it up to the top with extra vodka, and then store it for 2 or 4 weeks or longer if the stronger flavor is desired. Strain and discard the zest. So this I found as I was getting ready for this class. This is, I'm going to say lemon. I didn't label it. I labeled most of my stuff, but hey, every once in a while, it's my kitchen. Things go a little haywire in the kitchen. So I would say it's probably lemon. So this is what the zest looks like. I just pulled a piece out of the extract that I have here. So once again, if you were in class, if we were all touchy-feely with each other, I would be able to send this around. It does have a nice lemon scent to it. And if you taste it, it's going to taste like lemony alcohol. I'm not a drinker, so I don't enjoy the flavor. But you can see it's not fancy. It's no big deal. You strain it off, throw these out in the compost, and then you've got lemon. If you want it stronger lemon flavor, like I said, put new zest in there and keep going. So vanilla. So let me make a note here. Rebecca put in, if you want to make fruit leather, she found applesauce is the perfect addition to each fruit puree. It keeps it flexible and it doesn't overpower the flavor of the main fruit. So like peach and apricot, sometimes those can be delicate flavors. If you try to add anything else in there to help the texture, it overpowers it. But she says applesauce is a perfect addition. So applesauce is another thing you can easily make at home. You can do it in the crock pot overnight, or you can just do it on the stovetop. And so then once again, you control the sugars in it, no added sugar. You can control the preservatives in it, no preservatives. So thanks for that, Rebecca. So um, Karen and Montgomery's feeding us information on vanilla beans as well. So I want to talk about vanilla beans and extract. So to make a vanilla extract, you'll need 6 or 7 whole vanilla beans, split them open, scrape the contents out of them. And this is one of those you can use rum, brandy, vodka, bourbon. You can flavor it differently than just vodka. Put them in a bottle. If you need to cut them to get them to fit in the bottle, fit them. It's not going to hurt. Cover it with alcohol. Steep it 2 to 4 months. The longer the steep, the deeper the flavor. Remove the beans. When you remove the beans, this is what I did to make the vanilla sugar. I made vanilla extract. I then took the beans out and then simply dumped them in with sugar because they still had some flavor in them. I'm trying to get one out without spilling sugar all over my keyboard. All right. So here you can see that the bean has been split, and then I just took them and shoved them in sugar. And so that's a 2 for 1 on that because vanilla beans aren't cheap. So that's another way to use those up. And then I get vanilla sugar and I have vanilla extract. So with that, here is, you can see the color. Let me get this right. So of vanilla extract with all the beans in the bottom of it. All right. So I actually can see the marker on this. So I originally started this in August of 2019. So it has this awesome vanilla flavor to it, a great scent. And you can use your beans for a couple different brewings. I would say 3 would be the max. You know, if I use this down, I can add more vodka, let it sit for another 3 or 4 months, use it down, add more vodka. The more you use it, the longer you have to let it steep. Obviously, you guys understand that concept. So, but it does make a great substitute. And that all the extracts I make are vodka based.
Annette,
But yes,
you mentioned I've never used vanilla beans. So you said you split them open and you scrape it out. Do you throw that away, discard that?
no, the scraped part is the best part. So if you ever get a really
Oh,
high quality vanilla bean ice cream and you see little black flecks in it, that's the insides of the vanilla bean. So
okay.
you basically take a vanilla bean and it looks kind of like a pencil shape wise. So you would take it like this, you would just split it lengthwise, splay it open, and then take the blade of your knife, the back side of your knife, you can use a finger, you can use a spoon, and scrape between the 2 of them. And then what you scrape out is the little black paste. And so that goes in there as well as the bean itself, the bean pod itself.
Great, thank
So
you.
you're welcome. Thanks for helping me understand what I didn't explain very well. So, but then once they're done in the extract, you can stick it in the sugar like I did there, or you can just keep it in the same bottle and keep going. There's a couple of different types of vanilla bean pods. There's a Mexican vanilla, there's a Tahitian, and there's Madagascar. And so I thought I had a sheet on vanilla. It's somewhere. If I find it, I'll send it along. Otherwise, it's easy enough to look up. But for those households who are dealing with either don't drink alcohol at all for whatever personal reasons, I agree, Karen, a smell-o-vision would be great. Or that is recovering alcoholics and you don't want alcohol products in the house, that's completely understandable. There is a non-alcoholic version of extracts. If you look at your extract bottle that you have in your kitchen, typically they're like at least 35% alcohol. And that's because what they use to extract the extraction from. But you can make it using a food-based glycerin. Now you have to order these. You can't just go down to the pharmacy and get glycerin. It's not going to be food grade. You want a food grade glycerin on this. And you want to mix it 3 parts glycerin to 1 part water. it's gonna have a different consistency. It's gonna be more syrupy than pure out liquid like we're used to with extracts. And it will take at least 2 months, if not longer, to reach a flavor that's going to be high enough to what your equivalent vanilla flavor. Um, the longer, the better on that. So it will also taste a bit different than the commercial products you're used to, and it's because it's chemistry. The alcohol will extract certain compounds and chemicals out of the vanilla bean itself, whereas the glycerin will extract other compounds. So the compound makeup is going to be a little different between alcohol based and glycerin based. Just know that going in. It's not going to taste like the McCormick's off the shelf. Um, Either your own homemade with alcohol or with the glycerin. But if you know that and you understand that, you can adapt your flavor to it, or, need more, need less, things like that. So that is an option for those non-alcoholic households. You do, once again, want to store in dark brown bottles. Okay, questions on that? So Madagascar, Mexican, Tahitian vanilla, that's the three. When you go looking up and doing the research online, there's going to be qualities. There's going to be an A, there's going to be an A/B, and there's going to be a B. A is going to be the higher quality. B is going to be more the commercially used, mass production type. When you look at them, the more moist they look, the better they're going to be. And I have some here. Let's see. Yeah, we need smell-o-vision, Karen, because I opened the bag and it just smells awesome. So let's see. I don't know. I didn't mark the bag. Extract vanilla beans. That's pretty good. So this is what a vanilla bean looks like. Okay. Actually, let me just pull it out to be easier. Okay. It should be somewhat flexible. It shouldn't be completely brittle. If it's completely brittle, it's still usable, but it's not as high quality as ones that are still flexible. I should remember to put it up where you can actually see it. Okay. So ones that are about 5 to 7 inches long are good. And you'll just split it lengthwise, pull it out. You can see the difference in widths on some of these. I'm trying to make it where you can see. And they're still flexible as well. I've had these probably a couple years now, and they've been in a Ziploc bag stored in the back of my closet. These are ones I can tell I've made an extract or made sugar with them and then pulled them out of the sugar to use for something else. But now you'll see that these are very brittle. It just brittles right out because the moisture in them has been absorbed into the sugar or the extract that I was making with them. But ones like this, you could do potpourri with, you could do some other smelly something or other with. But once they get to that cracked and brittle stage, they're probably not going to give you much more flavor. Questions on vanilla beans? Okay. Do your research, look online. You can, if you have in your cities, if you live in bigger cities, if you have some pretty high-end spice stores and grocery stores, they'll have them in there as well. But remember, you don't want wrinkly little dried up vanilla beans. They're going to be past their prime. They're not going to give you as much flavor, but they will be cheaper. But once again, you get what you pay for on that. All right, questions on vanillas, extracts, or beans, vanilla beans? So, too fast, too slow?
You're doing great.
Okay, so sometimes I get carried away. All right, so now we're going to talk about some herbal vinegars. So once again, let me hang on my thing just a little so you're not bright sunlight killing you. So your basic homemade vinegars are going to make a fantastic base for salad dressings, for marinades. So basically use any kind of vinegar that you like. The white vinegar is going to have a much sharper tang than, say, the apple cider vinegar, and the red wine vinegar. But any vinegar that you happen to like, if you have a specialty vinegar that you absolutely love, go ahead and try infusing some herbs with it, and then just boosting up the flavor profile of it. So I'm not sure that that made it better. Oh well. Okay. Sorry, guys. Um, so take 2 cups of your favorite vinegar, a cup of mixed fresh herbs, basil, oregano, thyme, marjoram, whatever you like. You use the leaves, you can use the stems, you can use the flowers. If it's edible, you can use it. So if it's an inedible toxic plant, obviously don't use it. You take 3 cloves of garlic, peel them and crush them. You can use a tablespoon of whole peppercorns, black, white, pink, green, any combo, and whole dried cayenne peppers, optional on that. I'm not a heat kind of girl, so those aren't going in my vinegars. So you combine all the herbs and the spices with the vinegar, make sure everything is well covered in the vinegar, put it in a jar, but you want to, instead of just putting the regular like mason jar lid with the ring and the lid on it, instead of just taking this and slapping it on the jar, you want to cover the top of the jar with plastic wrap. And then you can put your, oh man, that smells good, ring and lid on, and then screw it back down. The reason being is the vinegar is acidic and it will eat the rings and the lids. That's why I don't ever store my canned goods with the rings on when I'm making jams and jelly, especially pickles, because the vinegar will rust the rings. So the plastic wrap is just a protective layer on there. Stir it, shake it daily, and after about 2 weeks, strain it out into a clean bottle. Taste it. If you like it, go with it. If not, put some more herbs in there and let it go again. It's very simple to do these herbal vinegars. If you want to give them as a gift, I would not put a fresh sprig of something in there and then give it as a gift, because of the water content and the possible mold spores on fresh herbs and anything like that could contaminate the vinegars. If you want to do the little fancy sprig thing, I would maybe do a rosemary, make sure it's a dried rosemary sprig. You can put some dried herbs back in there, but be aware they're going to soak up some of the vinegar and then be just like floppy messes in the jar, and it doesn't really look good. It looks cool in the commercially processed ones, and then you get them home and they're not so much. So very easy to do herbal vinegars. Leave it in there to steep, strain it out, jar it up. You can bottle it. It's a vinegar. It's shelf stable. It's just like your vinegars that you buy at the regular store. Just be aware, keep an eye on them. Sometimes vinegar is such a great preservative, but sometimes you can get overwhelmed with the amount of water in the fresh herbs versus the vinegar, and it dilutes it too much. So don't shove too many herbs in the vinegar. Questions on that? So if we do vinegars, then we can do oils. So infused oils, it's great to use in salad dressings. If you do a lemon infused oil, you can drizzle it over grilled chicken, vegetables, fish, anything like that. Once again, store your oils dark, cool, dark, dry. That's the rule for food preservation. Once again, when you peel your zest off, you shove it in the oil. Use a high quality, low flavor oil to start with. Don't let it steep for a couple weeks. Pull out your zest. Don't leave the zest in there. So the thing with oil, I got a little confused for just a second. Sorry about that. So zest it off into long strips. Put it in olive oil. Put it in the olive oil in a small saucepan and heat it up. Just warm it up. You don't allow it to boil or anything like that. Just barely warm enough. Don't even simmer it for about 10 minutes. Take it out the heat, let it cool down to room temperature, and then let it just steep, right, till it cools down. Then you strain the lemon zest out, pour it through a sieve, or simply use tongs to pick up the pieces. Then transfer it into a jar or other sealable container, and so store the oil in a dark place. So heating the oil up releases the oils and flavors that's in the zest itself. And you can do this with dried peppers as well. You can do it with any of your other herbs. Just barely heat the oil, low heat for about 10 minutes, turn off, let it come to room temperature. Your oil's not going to absorb any more. The longer you leave it, the more it's going to absorb. It does not work with the oils. So You can do anything in your oils. You can do orange infused oils, rosemary infused oils, hot chili oils. All of that you can make easily at home, but make sure that you pull the product out of the oil. Don't leave the stuff in there. This is not like the vinegar because oil is what you're basically setting up is an anaerobic environment and perfect for botulism. So there is all kinds of debate and all kinds of scientific research out there. And I put some of this in the handouts I sent to Scott on leaving garlic in oil. And it is a huge no-no because garlic is one of the most noteworthy items for starting botulism, especially when it's left in oil like that. So you definitely want to pull it out. But there's not saying you can't make them, but then just don't leave them in there. Does that make sense? Is that clear to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So, anybody have any questions? Okay. So now if we're infusing vinegars and we've done oils, how about honey? Can we infuse our honeys? So as a beekeeper, former beekeeper, we don't currently have any hives right now. This is another one of those hot topic issues. Can you infuse honey? Is it safe to eat? Blah, 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 blah. So there is some scientific information out there. You want to use a mild, light flavored honey. And then the dried herbs. This one is one that is not a fresh herbs kind of thing. It's got to be dried herbs and dried spices in this because of the water content of the fresh herbs will upset the chemical balance of the honey and it will spoil. And the best way to know it is you start making mead because you fermented your honey and it's not going to be pleasant. But make sure when you're infusing honey to use dried products in there. So how do you do it? So you want to fill a jar less than halfway full with your herbs and spices. If you're doing chili peppers, I would not put it halfway full of chili peppers. I would do a few, not a lot. 1 to 2 tablespoons per cup of honey is just a general guideline to go with. Of course, obviously, the more herbs and spices, the stronger the flavor. A teaspoon of cloves is going to be a lot stronger than a teaspoon of cinnamon stick. Just think about how that works. So, but then you put your honey in, pour it into your jar slowly, let it find its way to the bottom, but be sure that your herbs are fully submerged. So tap the jar, bring the air bubbles to the top, cover it with more herbs. Then you want to put the lid on it and you can set it in a sunny windowsill, somewhere that'll keep it warm and allow the herbs to infuse better. It also makes the honey more pourable. If you're using raw honey, if you're a beekeeper, you know a beekeeper, you get local honey, don't heat it more than 100 degrees because when you heat it more than 100 degrees, you start killing all the good beneficial bacteria that's in the honey itself. So it defeats the purpose of having pure raw honey if you're going to heat it up to make it enough to be pourable. I knew a guy that was like, he had great honey and he's like, yeah, I heated it up to like 120 degrees to make it easier to pour into my jars. And I'm like, dude, you just killed all your honey. Um, so just bear that in mind. If you're using raw honey from a local producer, don't heat it up more than 100 degrees or so. So once you have it in your jar, you want to turn it over at least once a day, let the honey, slowly move around, the herbs move around in it. Check the level of honey because your dried products are going to absorb some of it. You don't ever want your product to be above the level of honey. If you need to add more honey as you go, add more honey. You'll want to infuse it for at least a week, if not more. 3 to 4 weeks is better. The longer you leave it, the stronger the flavor is going to be. Boy, that light's really getting bad. Oh, that's better. Sorry. Sitting with 2 windows behind me. What was I thinking? So when the honey has infused enough to suit your taste, go ahead and strain out the herbs and then store it in cool, dark, dry space. So here's some examples, some sleepy, and these recipes I've provided to Scott for the handouts for you guys. So sleepy time honey, 3/4 cup dried lavender flowers, 3/4 cup dried chamomile, and honey. So yeah, what better sleepy time recipe than that? You make you some warm tea, put some of this honey in it, and you're off to bed. Here's one that has 3 tablespoons of dried orange peel and 4 to 5 dried chili peppers, and it's called Sweet Heat. which, sometimes you want that spicy hot sweetness. That's a great one for it too. So once again, infusing your honey, it's the same as everything else. Pick good quality products to go in it, pick the flavor profiles that you like, pick what you want to eat, and do that. All right, so we've talked vinegars, oils, honeys. So now we go. Here we go. So now we're going to get into smoked salts. So you guys have seen these baking competitions or these cooking shows, and they use these smoked salts for this extra flavor. Well, if you've ever priced smoked salts, it's stupidly expensive, but it is so easy to make. And so it's just an aromatic salt that's been smoked with any number of woods up to 14 days. So the kind of wood that you use impacts the flavor. Makes sense. So it can range from subtle to bold or even sweet. So the most common choices for smoked, I'm still trying to get out of the sun. The most common choices, um, applewood, hickory, mesquite, and oak. That's some of the more popular ones around here. I think up north they have a lot of alder that they use as well. So it's used to just enhance the flavors of the dish already, but it also gives you that little slightly smoky taste to it. A lot of times vegetarians will use it to give them that little hint of meat and smokiness, like a little bacon flavor without actually being bacon. I'm not sure I buy that concept, but if I'm going to have bacon, I'm going to have bacon. But those that don't eat bacon, I can understand that they're wanting a substitute. So smoked salt is different from when you see float smoke flavored salt. You can go up to the stores and look on the shelves and you'll see, oak smoked salt. Well, it's not the same thing. That is infused with a smoke flavoring additive. You've heard of liquid smoke. My mom used to use it a lot. She'd braise or she'd rub it on her rib or roasts and stuff like that to give that little smoky flavor to it. Well, that's what they're doing. They're adding that liquid smoke flavor to salt so that it's enhanced with that smoke. But if you actually want true smoked salts, um, it's very simple to do. So the smoke flavored salts are not classified as a natural salt product. So all you do, and we have friends that own barbecue businesses, and so when we know when they're barbecuing, and we're like, "Hey, can you smoke some salt for us?" So what we do is we take one of the big giant turkey roasting pans, and this is one that you want to use kosher salt or you want to use coarse pickling salt, just like you did in the salt blends. And so we'll take a big pan up there, don't even have to cover it in foil, and we'll say, "Can you smoke this for us?" And they'll find a little spot on their smoker, and as they're smoking, they'll make some smoked salts for us. So this is, you can see the darker flecks in there. This is an oak smoked salt that they did for us. Now, if you do this at home, what you want to do is that might even be better. You want to stir the salt every so often. You'll put it in the pan, the smoke's going on it, so the top layer gets really smoky, but the bottom layer is not getting so much salt. So you want to stir it up and blend it in, and then another hour or so, go stir it again, or not. So what happens when I ask them to smoke me some salt is I put it in a big roasting pan, they stick it in there and it sits there until they're done. They don't stir it, they don't pamper it. It's not their salt, they don't care. I mean, I give them some, but so that's why it comes out flecked looking, is because some of the grains are much more smoked than others. If you take your time and you stir it, you will get one like this that is much more a uniform color. Now, this happens to be hickory. The first one I showed you was oak. There are some darker grains in here, but not many. So this is, if you stir it as you smoke it, it becomes more uniform. If you're just using a free smoke from the smoker, then get what you get and go with it, and it tastes just as good anyway. So very simple to do. How hard is that? How many people already have smokers that are smoking sausage, or they're smoking a ham, or they're doing this? Throw a pan of salt in there and make you some smoked salts at the same time. Very simple to do. Questions on that? Okay. So in that we're running up on about an hour, so that's what I said I would keep it to. So in that, one of the ladies had said she taught her class "Tis the Seasonings," and I think she had to jump off. Maybe not. She might still be here, but she taught like how to make your own spice mixes and rubs and things like that. And so I've included a page in the handouts that you'll get on like a chicken rub, a barbecue spice rub, a basic steak mix, which is probably along the same lines of what she had. But what you can do with these is now you, instead of putting just regular salt, you can put a smoked salt in there. You can add your lime zest into some of them if you want a little bit, like you got a Jamaican flavor going on. You can use the dried lime zest, the dried lemon zest that you've used from some of these other mixes and go with that. So now we've talked about all of that, but what do we do with them? So we said gifts from the kitchen. So here are some gift ideas for you real quick to wrap this up. So you've made your smoked salts, you've made your rubs, you've packaged them all up, and I am infamous for using whatever jars I have left in the kitchen. This was a pesto sauce somebody gave us. Yeah, see, label still on the bottom. This was a jam jar. I just thought the jar was cool. It's got little handles on the side. I'm notorious for reusing what I have. So I get a spice blend that I use a lot, and it comes in a square glass jar with a nice flip top plastic lid. I save those throughout the year, and then when I package up these seasonings, I put them in these nice little glass jars, tie a ribbon on it, and stick a label on it, say what the spice mix is and what it's good for. Like with an all-purpose a barbecue spice rub, I'll put it's for chicken and shrimp, or it's for vegetables, things like that. Just cute little label, stick it on there. So I gather up a jar of smoked salt, a spice rub. I get a couple of hand towels, festive looking hand towels, or checkered. Usually I do red and white checkered or black and white checkered hand towels. I buy a spatula and I put it all in like a little basket. There you go. There's a simple gift idea, easy to put together, quick. You can run down to the dollar store, get the little fillers for it, but it showcases what you've done in your kitchen and made it into a nice gift. The thing you can do with some of the salts, the citrus salt, I'm not the salts, the sugars, the vanilla sugar, the lavender sugar, your citrus sugars. So you bottle those up nice, label what they are, maybe stick a sugar cookie recipe in there, buy a couple cookie cutters and wrap it up in a baking towel and tie a little ribbon on it. And there you go. So it's you get some store bought in there, but you are mostly showcasing your own homemade products in that. There's the recipe I gave you in here for a French bread, for a bread dip mix. So you give it with a little bottle of your own infused olive oil and your own infused vinegars. Go buy a loaf of French bread and maybe a small cutting board and a bread knife and stick it in there together and tie it together. Or get you a little set of ramekins so that they can pour them into together with an Italian seasoning blend and stick that in there. It's just, you just have to think about these processes and think about what you're making and how you can then showcase it. Let's see. Yep, that was the end of that. So French bread gift idea, pre-made dipping mix, glass bottle of oil, and a flour sack towel. So a grilling idea, use a chicken seasoning, a steak seasoning, an oak smoked salt, tongs, and an oven mitt. Very simple. I had these pre-done as they were giveaways at one of the classes I was teaching. So your pre-made sugars, citrus extracts, cookie cutters, and linens. Very simple to do. You're using a lot of stuff you're already using in your kitchen anyway. You're not buying a lot of stuff. You'll buy the vanilla beans, that's for sure, but most stuff you already have in your kitchens. So that's pretty much going to wrap up the gifts from the kitchen and how to use them and how to present them. Like I said, I wish I would have, had smell-o-vision and we could have all been in the same room together. But anybody have any questions or thoughts?
For your handouts on the smoked salt, do you have suggestions as to what to use the smoked salts with?
I do not. I have not put those in there. That's a good thing. I'll have to look that up and see. Basically, you want to use a smoked salt on anything you want to add a little smoky flavor to without overwhelming it with it. You can add it to the top of a dip. You can, as you're cooking corn on the cob, you can sprinkle that on there instead of regular table salt, and it will just add an extra dimension to it. You can mix it into a butter and then use that butter on a bread. Um, just kind of things like that to add that little smoky kick without having, it coming straight off the grill.
Okay.
So, anything else?
Very good.
Okay. You can take me off center screen now, Bonnie. I actually like seeing everybody. So
I'm trying to.
I've had a recipe that you were talking about, the lavender,
yes,
making lavender cookies with the buds, and
yes.
then for the frosting, taking the lavender buds, adding it to the powdered sugar, set it overnight or an hour or two, then sift the buds out, and then make your frosting.
Make a glaze with it or a frosting.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That's a perfect way to use it. So, and in the recipes that I used granulated sugar for, you can use powdered sugar just for that specific reason. If you want to use it as a glaze, you want to use it as a frosting instead of the granulated, you can definitely use it as a powdered sugar as well. So, any other questions?
You've had a couple of comments. People loving your gift ideas and great
Yeah.
ideas.
Oh.
So
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to get to share this with you guys. So if you have any comments on the handouts, once Scott gets them out to you, just be sure to let me know. Scott can get a hold of me. Bonnie can get a hold of me. I'm not that hard to get a hold of. Just let me know. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
yeah, Scott hasn't sent them out yet, but I think they'll be coming soon. He's subbing today, so
That's okay.
Yeah.
I was late in getting them to him, so I didn't have my act together very well.
it's okay. We'll get them, and that'll be great.
Okay, perfect. Well, I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and happy holidays. And let me know if you have any questions. I enjoyed teaching and appreciate the opportunity. So,
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
you're welcome. All right,
Take
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. I'm hungry now.
You're happy now, huh?
Oh, I'm hungry.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a good thing we weren't smelling it.
Yes, definitely so.